All right, guys, well, I'm going to talk to you about Hurricane Matthew. It's been a pretty big storm over the past week or so. So if you haven't heard of it, you're definitely going to be hearing of it now, since it's almost pretty much going to be making its way towards the Florida Peninsula. So right now, this is a visible satellite image showing you the mass of clouds and the range. Really, it's just a tremendous storm. Winds, though, back down to a Category 3, but it will be back to a Category 4 after it passes the Bahamas. So where is it sitting exactly? Well, still right around 200 miles east of Miami, but it doesn't look like it'll be making landfall to the Miami area, but it will bring some very heavy winds and also some very strong rain bands as well. So we're talking about seeing some potential localized flooding for some areas, but it does look like it could be grazing the Florida Peninsula past Lake Okeechobee towards the Orlando area all the way up until Jacksonville. So those areas could actually be dealing with a flood threat, and we're talking about even seeing some very strong storm surge conditions. So as we put this again back into motion, this is what it's pretty much looking like over the next 4 days or so. So it could be back into a Category 4 by this late afternoon for your Thursday. So some very, very strong winds. We're talking about winds back over 130 miles per hour. But at the moment, it's still making its way northwest at around 12 miles per hour towards the Florida Peninsula. So right now it's just sitting along the Bahamas, drawing in a lot of rain and, of course, the strong winds that we've been talking about. So let's put this into motion again just for you, as of course I am on Central Time. You guys are all on Eastern Time, so you want to add an hour to everything you're seeing. So by Thursday afternoon, that's when we're going to start seeing those very strong rain bands move on through South Florida. So that's when you guys want to be indoors. Of course, have all your preparations ready. Be prepared for some even power outages, because we could see this again packing in a huge punch as it does make its way up the Florida Peninsula into the Orlando area by late Thursday going into early Friday morning. But for us, again, South Miami, you know, the Wynwood area, that whole area, North Miami, Aventura, that area, you guys are going to be really seeing some strong winds and the heavy rainfall associated with all of this. So it's going to be just an ugly mess over the next few days. And if you are planning on flying into South Florida, your flights might actually be canceled for Friday. All right, so again, let's put this into motion. Jacksonville, again, possibly making landfall, so some very dangerous conditions. Again, a lot of the areas are under a hurricane warning, so that's when you want to evacuate the area. As for winds, I'm a little out of breath right now. As for winds will be right around 20 to almost 60 miles per hour, so that's why we're under that a tropical storm warning in South Florida, because we could see winds in the tropical storm range right around 74 mile per hour winds. So wind gusts again higher, and that's a big dangerous factor as well. Overall for rain, some areas can see right around 5 to 8 inches of rainfall total. So again, localized rainfall definitely likely across South Florida. But as for the temperatures, check that out, low 90s in Miami. All right. All right, hey South Florida. Well, if you haven't heard of Hurricane Matthew, you definitely will be feeling that today, since it's pretty much sitting over the Bahamas at the moment. Here's the image of the visible satellite. You can actually see how massive this storm is, and it's been pretty strong, back down to a Category 3, but expected to be a Category 4 later in the afternoon today as soon as it gets closer to the Florida Peninsula. But you can see it's sitting right along here, about 231 miles east of Miami. So again, it's not going to be making landfall over Miami, but it will still be bringing in the strong rains, the strong winds, and some very scary conditions. But it does look like the best chance of it making landfall would be past the Okeechobee area, north of Orlando, between Jacksonville. So that area definitely needs to be evacuating if they haven't done so already. So as we put this all into motion again over the next few days, still looking at those winds picking up to around 140 miles by late Thursday afternoon. Again, remember, I'm on Central Time, you're all on Eastern Time, so you want to add on an extra hour to everything you're seeing. So again, still remaining a Category 4, very strong. By the time it hits the Georgia area, back down to a Category 2, Category 1 as it moves out to sea. But again, this is just an area of uncertainty because it still can form or sit around in the Atlantic over the next few days or so. But for us, again, winds still pretty much right around 125 miles per hour at the moment. So here's a nice view of the satellite and radar, already showing you some rain bands coming through the Miami metro area and also North Miami as well, South Miami, Kendall, everybody way out west, seeing some of the rain effects already. So Hialeah, U2, and also the beach area. We're looking at, again, rain coming down, but that's not even the worst of it. The biggest chance of seeing the heavier rainfall, again, you want to add an hour to that, the late afternoon, so right around 2:30 p.m., 2 o'clock. That's when we're really going to start to see the rain, the winds pick up for South Florida. So again, as we put this into motion, this is just a model run of showing you what can happen. It doesn't really make landfall just yet, the eye. So when the eye doesn't hit, that means we're not going to be dealing with the storm surge, but we're still going to be seeing some very strong winds and heavy rainfall associated with this. So it does graze the West Palm area all the way up until Vero Beach, and then south of Orlando, that's when it could be making landfall possibly, so right around Melbourne and then into the Jacksonville area. So still drawing in some rain bands, some heavy winds, some strong winds, even some areas could see the localized flooding. But the biggest threat, again, if it does make landfall, is going to be that storm surge for the Jacksonville area all the way up into Savannah. So that's what one of the model runs is looking like as we put that into motion. So for you, my friends, very strong winds, South Florida. We're talking about winds right around tropical storm miles per hour. So right around between 74 mile per hour winds are very likely for our area. And then as we go into your Friday, still some very strong winds as well. So if you have any flights coming in Friday, you might want to check with the airport and see if they're still okay go. So here's what it's looking like overall rainfall accumulation. Definitely the heaviest rainfall around the coastal areas. But as we move more westward, we're looking at just right around 1 inch to 2 inches. This is probably around 5 to 8 inches of rain where you're seeing the orange. So very dangerous situations for along the coastal areas. Hey, take a quick peek out in the temperature. South Florida, 94 degrees.